Welcome to Inclusion Matters, a podcast about children's development from the Center for Inclusive Childcare. Welcome to Inclusion Matters, a podcast from the Center for Inclusive Childcare. I'm Priscilla Weigel, the Executive Director, and I'm here today again with our great partner and friend, Michele Fallon, who is an infant and early childhood mental health consultant with a passion for childcare. And we started a conversation a while back about partnering with parents, and so we're going to continue that discussion today. And Michele, you want to just tell us a little bit of why that is such an important piece to the work we do in childcare?
I think it's the underappreciated side of childcare, actually, that, we often talk about childcare as providing children with all these quality experiences and pre-learning and all those things. Mm-hmm. But I do think that it's a really important way to help promote strong families.
Nice.
I think we might have talked last time a little bit about parallel process, and I think that there actually is research to suggest that the quality of the relationship between the adults who care for a child, whether it's a mom and a dad, a mom and a grandma, or parents and child care providers, the quality of that relationship can actually influence the quality of the relationship between the parent and the child. And what parent of a young child who's going to work isn't stressed?
Right. True.
Including child care providers,
yes.
Of course. But
yes.
That's another podcast.
Truly. Yes.
And I think parents come with their own set of issues and challenges that can make it challenging to have those kinds of relationships with parents. There's the good old protective urges, the idea that, nobody's good enough to care for my baby. And sometimes I think child care providers may be on the end of a parent's guilt for having to leave their child in child care.
Right.
Or sometimes the parent's guilt at how relieved they feel leaving their child in child care. Anyway, just that it's complicated. And child care providers, particularly with really young children, also have protective urges. If you're doing the intimate care of a child, you want the best for that child, and you may find yourself feeling judgmental of parents when drop-offs don't go well, or a parent doesn't respond with the joy you think a child deserves at pickup, or when there's a diaper rash, or whatever it is. So I think it's easier said than done in terms of building strong relationships with parents, and yet it's such an important skill for child care providers to have.
And I think often, as you said, kind of that unsung, I'm not recalling the exact word you used, but the challenge, I think, for the professional in the field is oftentimes folks go into this work because they feel that connection to the children, but that facet of the parent connection and building that relationship is probably one of the most challenging. And so you shared in our last podcast about just having that perspective of not always realizing that you don't always see the full picture of what happened in that parent's day before they came through the door in the morning. Some parents are real open with sharing of, I remember I had a parent who would say to me, he's been up since 3, here you go, have a great day. And just, laughingly walking out the door going, it's been a hard one. But then there are also parents that you might not get that picture, and you might have that child in your care all day and not have that piece of information. So I think that building of the back and forth communication with that family and those parents is so essential for everyone. And as you said, research even bears that out to say we're all going to be happier if we build this successful partnership.
Right.
Yeah.
I just remember doing consultation at a child care center where there was one mom. It was a young single mom, and she would drop off her mobile infant, I guess her child was. But she would come in to pick him up, and there was a rocking chair in the classroom. And she would flop down in that rocking chair, and the teacher would say, how did that test go? Or what's going on? Or whatever it was. And that mom would sit, and I know it's a busy time.
Mm-hmm.
But that mom would sit there for about 10 minutes, and she was a different person
Yeah.
when she bent down to pick up that baby, because that child care provider had acknowledged her as a person, in addition to being the mother of the baby that they cared for. It was quite remarkable to see.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other partnering I think about is, I remember one child care provider that I had the opportunity to work with, who was very skilled. Toddler room, very challenging drop-off for a mom with a little girl about 20 months old. And it was just kind of routine. And mom got to the point where she would just basically drop the kid and run. And the child would cry and cry for longer than most children, which of course upset the other children. And the child care provider, understandably, was feeling a bit resentful. And what she ended up doing was just asking for she and the mom to have a meeting, and just said, I'm noticing that drop-offs are getting harder all the time, and let's see if we can figure out a way to make this easier. Well, mom, basically started to cry and said, I'm so scared I'm going to lose my job. I've got this boss, so I don't have time to do this. And she and the child care provider figured out a little routine for drop off. They were very intentional, and within a week or two, it was a totally different story.
Nice.
For all of involved. But I think it's that kind of partnering. It takes extra time, but boy, it sure makes a difference.
It really does. And the reminder, too, in other situations similar to that, where we might see that same parent reaction, and come to find out when we start talking about things with the family, them feeling like we're critiquing them as a parent. It's a lot of pressure to be coming into a building filled with other adults who are watching you pick up your child. And it's hard not to feel self-conscious about that, especially if your child is exhibiting some challenging behaviors. And I just remember thinking, I wonder if I said to this parent, you know what, they're still under our roof. I can help you with getting them to the door. If that would make it easier, let's try it. And walking that child, the parent's right next to me, and we're all walking together to that door. But what it did was just take away that added stress that was already on top of a stressful day. And it gave them an opportunity then to go to their car and have a great connecting time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It just postponed it a little bit, and it actually was more positive, and it didn't need to go on forever. I think when we make suggestions like that, oftentimes folks providing care think, oh, I can't possibly do that. It's the busiest time. But if you think of, you're going to give this time now because you're building a better future, and it's going to be less time later. Yeah.
It's a limited intervention.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yes.
Yeah. But no, I think that's a good point. I think sometimes it's like, oh, on top of everything else, I have to do this. But in the end, it hopefully makes everybody's day go better.
Yeah. And it's just that communication piece. And I think the clear communication is the challenge, and the boundaries. So I'm thinking of, what you were saying with the mom in the rocking chair. And so I'm thinking, as I'm looking at time, Michele, I think we can address that in the next installment of our podcast together, because I think that's going to delve into some other things that might be really helpful for people to understand. Are you willing to come back and talk another time?
I am. I
All right.
think boundaries, especially in family child care, are really challenging.
Yeah, they are.
Important topic.
Great. I'll look forward to talking with you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. For more resources, visit us at inclusivechildcare.org.